Hey guys, Tony Taylor over at Interconnect Mortgage. I wanted to bring to you guys a special guest today, Kelly Stromsall, who is a local attorney. Kelly and I were talking, and something that we've seen increasingly in the mortgage side of the business is as their parents are getting older,
Right.
parents are having their children added to the title of their home in an attempt to do some estate planning. And in the mortgage side of things, that creates some real complexities for the
Sure.
kids, the heirs, and it is not always going to actually resolve the estate issues that the family would intend to have executed. So I wanted to bring Kelly in. This is one of her areas of expertise. She's amazing, and
Oh,
get her insight as to how this impacts things so that you can do the right things to prevent those problems. So Kelly, what would be, your direction and how that affects people from a legal side of things and how they should really handle it?
sure, absolutely. As people are buying property, they're often deciding what the deed says. So just some basics are when a deed is between a husband and wife, it'll say the right of survivorship. And that means if something happens to one spouse, the other spouse owns the property, but wholly, meaning there's nothing to do. The other spouse owns it. If you buy a property with two people, it's tenants in common, and that's 50-50. So in the estate planning environment, that can be challenging because now we've got half a property owned by someone. So you really your deed is really, really important. And in your environment on the real estate side, when you're working on that mortgage, now the mortgage has two names on it, and that's who's responsible financially, but the deed has to do with ownership. So as an estate planning tool, many families do try to do some estate planning with the deed. It usually, it doesn't always impact the mortgage because the mortgage is already determined and who's paying is paying, but they can change the deed over time. So what families do is sometimes they add a child. Tony, you and I have talked about this. Tony's really watching out for families as she's looking at your mortgage, so she's really looking at your real estate. She's looking at what's happening with the whole transaction. So thank you for helping all those people, Tony. So when a family, say a mom owns a property and she puts her daughter on that property, now they both own it. And that brings some legal issues with it. It potentially brings, you have to watch your homestead protection. Florida has a very strong homestead law, so we want to make sure your homestead is protected. And we also want to make sure that if there's a liability issue, there's an accident, there's something that, sadly occurs, an event where there's some liability, that home is now owned by the daughter and the mom. So we just want to kind of be very careful who we're doing that with. Now, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It just means that you really should look at it based on the facts of what's going on in the family. If, for example, mom moves into the area, mom is 90 years old, not driving anymore, another option is to create a ladybird deed. So a ladybird deed is a mom owns the property, and then upon her passing, in the deed, it has to be written properly, and it's very specific as to the language within the deed. But you can actually have the daughter own the property within the deed. It is an estate planning tool. The issue is if you have more than one child, what does that create? If you create everybody is probably thinking, wow, I'll do that. That's great. I don't have to deal with a will or probate. But what happens is if there's more than one person that's on this ladybird deed, now what do we have? We have all those people that need to agree in a sale. We have all those people that are dealing with the mortgage. We have all those people that are impacted homestead-wise, where they live, their estate, mom's estate, kids' issue with respect to distribution. So it is a great tool, but it has to be for you specifically. So Tony, I know you have a lot of situations where families will come and say, okay, we're all buying this together, or it's a second home. And bottom line is, the bottom line is that you really just have to check each scenario. A lot of times a lawyer's involved in the transaction, so ask.
Yeah.
A lot of times the deed, the way they write the deed, sometimes you can make the decision. Say, let's, if you have a trust, okay, let me back up to a trust. If you have a trust already, a revocable trust, please, please, please close your house in the name of your trust. If you don't, you got to go to a law office and then have that deed drafted, and then you have to actually register it again, or send it through the court records, if you will, make it an official record, so that now the house is in your trust. It's owned by your trust because the deed says that.
Yeah.
So we've addressed
there's
labor
so many
deeds,
things.
family deeds, family being on deeds, and now if you have a trust, close in the name of your trust.
Yeah, and so here's one of the things, and here's what we see on the mortgage side of things. So people think that, hey, I'm going to go on my mom and dad's house so that, when they pass, it won't go through probate, just like you mentioned. That's the concept, right? But what they don't understand is when they go to do a mortgage for themselves on their own primary residence, now we have to get into the expenses that come with that property. And you may even say, well, the property's free and clear, there's no expenses. Well, there still are. There's taxes, there's insurances, and maybe there's a homeowners association due.
Right.
So, and I'll have families come to me, it's they don't even think about it because they did it. It's just there for that.
It was a protection.
And now they're buying a house. And then in our process, because they run all these background checks, bam, here comes this piece of real estate in upstate New York that nobody even thought anything of. And it can actually affect the transaction and the qualifying.
They own it. It's an asset. You have to deal with what do you own? It's a debt ratio.
Absolutely.
On that house.
Yeah, and probably the other piece that I always tell people, especially when you're talking, and it's very common that we have people in multiple states when we're talking about these things, right? But the other piece is that nobody can accurately guide you based on one component of your estate.
Right.
And so, I can tell you what the rules are in mortgage lending. Kelly can tell you what the rules are from an estate trust, those kind of planning, the wills and things like that. And it's really important that you actually have a team that you're working with so that you can make sure that the right answers and the right setup honors your wishes and doesn't impede other people in the transaction's ability to maneuver and manage their own financial life in a negative way.
And we're really seeing that. I mean, you're seeing it in your industry. I am too.
Yeah.
You need a team. You need to make that phone call to maybe your family attorney. If you're in Florida and you're buying this home in New York and New Jersey or another state, North Carolina, and you have an attorney there or work with one, call them and just run the scenario.
Yeah.
It is absolutely worth it because each state has its own laws. So true about the ownership. You're owning a property. I know you're trying to do it as an estate planning. It can work, but just make sure you check with all your people.
Yeah. So Kelly, if somebody had questions for you, how would they get a hold of you?
My main website is kellyesq.com.
Okay.
YESQ.com, and there you can find the phone numbers and make an appointment, that type of thing. I do have my own law office, but that's the best way to reach me. And you can, my last name is Sternfall, and it's really hard to spell, so that's how we've dealt with it. Find me there, kellyesq.com.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everything. You're always an amazing amount of wisdom and insight. And I've worked with Kelly. We've known each other for several years now, and she's helped me so many times and helped clients. And I just, would encourage all of you that if you're in this situation and you're trying to figure it out, or maybe you've already made some decisions and you're thinking, maybe I didn't do the right thing, it's never too late to get that looked upon and get it reviewed and make sure that you're getting it set up correctly so you can continue. And
I'm happy to answer those questions. I mean, really, my dad passed away. An attorney helped me in one question that I just couldn't answer, and I always promised that I would pay that forward. Really, whatever's going on, if you have that question, I'm happy to answer it. There's no charge for a phone call. So
awesome. You're the
worried
best.
About lawyers calling them, but really, I'm happy to answer the question.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Well, thanks so much for taking the time, and I'll put your information in this below the post and whatnot so that people can reach out to you. So again, thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks for taking care of people with mortgages. You're my go-to for mortgages.
Thanks.
So knowledgeable. So, really just know answers to pretty much every question. So
thank you.
Take care of people.